Hey, this is Henry Sanders back with another episode of Real Talk. We want to thank our sponsors at Park Bank. Thank you for everything. Thank you for supporting us and all this content we've been doing for the past 2 years and helping us really bring a lot of these wonderful people doing all this work in our community to the forefront. So thank you for that. If you want more of this content, make sure you go to our YouTube page or go to our podcast. Wherever you get this podcast content, make sure you go there. And we would love to give you more of this content. Today I have... I don't even know how to explain this black man. I want to say he's like a Renaissance black man. He's a lawyer, judge, pastor, and he's actually he gives one of the best sermons. He's like one of the best orators that you're ever going to hear giving sermons. Man of the community, husband, father, bougie. I'm just going to introduce him, man. Judge Everett D. Mitchell, or Pastor Everett D. Mitchell. How you doing, sir?
Good, Brother Sanders. How you doing? Bougie, bro.
I'm straight. I'm straight bougie. Bougie Down Productions, like I said. Bougie Down
Production. Oh my goodness, that's gonna be hilarious.
BDP. See, the young kids don't know. BDP. Young kids don't know who BDP is, but you older cats get it. But I appreciate. I know you're a busy man, and so appreciate you spending some time with us. And I love you sincerely. I love everything that you do, and you're the truth. I want to talk about you, though. I mean, cool. You're just big judge now. You're an attorney. Yeah, and actually, you went to seminary school. So, you have a very well background from education. Clearly, is important to you, and we can get into that. But where are you from originally?
Originally from Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, you're from Texas.
Yeah, dirty South.
I can see the South. You have a Southern culture, values all in you. I can see that. Mm-hmm. So you grew up in? Did you grow up in Texas?
Oh yeah, yep.
High school in Texas?
High school, ODY high school, Texas. I didn't play football. I was too skinny then. I could do it now, but I was a basketball. That was my thing, man. Playing basketball. We played basketball. Some people be complaining about how hot it is, man. We be out in 100-degree heat, balling, playing ball. That's what you did.
Okay, hold up. See, now everyone said they can play basketball. Were you on a team? Were you playing on a team?
I played for the high school team.
Did you start, Pastor?
It depends.
Okay. See, that would get into the truth. So, but you actually,
I was in the rotation. I was in the 12-man rotation.
But you were on the team though. You traveled with the team. You dressed up.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I was a baller, man. Defense is my specialty, man. I could go. Coach would put me in to stop whatever the star player was, because that's what I did. I played. I was relentless on the D.
Defense takes a lot of heart. Mm-hmm. That's tenacity. Okay, so
I actually patterned my game after Dennis Rodman.
Oh Lord!
Yeah, that's what I want. He was the icon at that time of what I thought a good basketball player represented.
I have to say this though. A pastor married himself after Dennis Rodman. Everyone stop! Let that sink in for a minute. The pastor said Dennis Rodman was his dude. That's why everyone stop.
Yeah, that was before Dennis Rodman did his metamorphosis. He was still.
This is Detroit, Dennis Rodman. This is Detroit, Dennis Rodman.
Detroit, but even early Chicago. Detroit, early Chicago, Dennis Rodman. Man, he go in there, bully folks, stay in front of them, take the charges. Do the hard work, do the grindy work, so that the other stars can look pretty. So that was my game.
Okay, so you went So you went to ODY. Is that what you called it?
ODY.
OBY.
OD. Don't miss the Oscar Dean Wyatt High School.
Okay, ODY. What's up, ODY? Okay, so you went to ODY. At that time, when you're in high school, were you still did you have a 2-parent household? Or what was that like?
Oh man, my childhood was full of trauma, man. my mom was a single mother, and she had my sister now for a long time, and then she got married to a guy who would start, molesting my sister at the age of 6. So from the age of probably about when I was 6, she was 5. From that age on, all the way up to was 18 years old. Me and my sister were fighting, trying to get him out the house and try to get some help so he would stop abusing her. So, it was just, relentless misery and pain for those 12 years that we were trying to get some help.
Is your mom still with us?
Mm-hmm. Yep, she's here.
How did that impact your relationship with your mom?
It took a lot of therapy. And actually it really was, people say stuff in church all the time about you got to forgive, and that's kind of loose and really don't really have any depth to it until you find yourself in a situation where, you love somebody, but you've been hurt by the inaction, and then that has caused significant pain to not just you, but also somebody else I love. So it took therapy, but it also took empathy. Like I had to go back and really look at what my mom had been through. She had been the victim of, my grandmother giving her up and saying she didn't want her. And, she was going from house to house to house as a young, beautiful Black girl. And, she had no family connections after she lost my great grandmother. And then once my great grandmother died, she was just passed around. And so, she didn't have any grounding. And so she thought this relationship was going to be something that was supportive. She didn't want to believe that somebody that she brought into her home would do that to her children. So, he had all of the things that people look for. He was a deacon in the church, and, athletic, and, had, all these different things. So it just was hard for her to believe. So it took a lot of forgiveness and, in many ways, I'm still working through it just to make sure I can be fully present for my children and not bring that burden and pain into their life.
And how is your sister?
She's strong, man. Last year, right before COVID hit, I do all these talks and I go different places. So, the Lord laid on my heart to, instead of me doing one talk one time, to put my sister in one of my talks. So I flew her up here. I had a big conference at the Dells, and I told the organizers, I said, I could tell you about my journey. I could tell you about trauma, but I actually want you to listen to my sister because she's a part of my story, and I want her to own that power. So I flew her up here from Texas. We checked into a hotel room, and we did the presentation together. So I told them, this is who I am, but let me introduce you to her. And she took over, and she did a fantastic job. So, it's about healing and owning that you're not stuck in time anymore and that you can move forward.
That's beautiful. But she's doing as best as she can at this point. Mm-hmm. And what about the guy?
Oh, I think he's a pastor and never went to prison. And so.
Did him and your mom stay together, or did they break up? Or
they broke up after the CPS came in when I was about age 18. They kind of broke up after that because the CPS came and broke the family up. In many ways, I was happy with that. And then they did, they went through their whole divorce process after that.
What's CPS stand for?
Child Protective Services.
Okay. Well, that's a lot. Well, that's a way to start a real talk. That was real talk.
That's real. I mean, a lot of people see what the scripture, the song says, I don't look like what I've been through. So a lot of people look at titles and positions and don't understand, like, there's a backstory to the depth of, why you are who you are.
Yeah.
So,
which is interesting because this is why we're doing the real talk, right? So people can understand that you just didn't show up to be a judge one day. And like you're just giving it to you being a judge or a pastor, like it just wasn't given to you, right? And you had to work when you had to go through your own trauma. And I want to come back to this, but I want to make sure I get this out here. A lot of people who become mad at God or become agnostic. Most people are agnostic. Something happened to them where they made them mad at God, right? That they don't believe. You went through that situation, watching that with your sister for what, so like 12 years. But still kept the faith, that grew in faith. I don't know if you're a man of faith at that point, but you somehow kept that faith. We need to dig into that, because I want to figure out, how did that happen, right? Okay, so this has happened with your sister. So let's start here. So this happened with your sister. Were you a man of God at that point? Did you have faith at that point?
I was 6, so no. So no, I was just a kid and first grader. And I think once I got to, like I said, I wasn't that kid who, was exceptional, but I was a good kid. And so, but by the time I got to 9th grade, like most kids, I was extremely frustrated. I was angry. I was skipping school, cussing out teachers, and because I couldn't read. I was functionally illiterate. So, I struggled with, reading. I could do math. I was always good at math and chemistry and science, but I couldn't read. I couldn't understand words. It just was too difficult. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that I was functionally illiterate this whole time. So, so going through, by the time you get to high school, I'm very angry and I'm turned off by the school, and people are like telling me that, you don't really have no promise. So you just kind of need to sit in the back of the classroom. And I used to try to fight to get into classes, and they wouldn't let me in. And so I just said, forget it, man, I'm done. And I would skip class, go get drunk, Mad Dog 2020, go get that with my homeboys, and we go, line it up, go to school, cuss out teachers, act a fool. And I was sitting down one day in the house, and I was getting ready, because I only wanted to be 2 things, a rapper or a basketball player. So I was sitting down in the room, and I was learning the bars to, my mind is playing tricks on me. And so I'm learning, and
Ghetto Boys,
right? So I'm sitting there learning those bars, and I hear my name being called. And it's like, Everett. I'm looking around like, man, what the hell's going on? Am I tripping? And so I go back to my bar. Then wasn't no CDs. You had to record on the radio and then play it back, right? So I put exactly. So I had to put it back on, and talk about it. And then I cut back, and then I hear it again, Everett. I'm freaking out. And it called my name one more time, Everett. And so then I've been in church all my life. And I'd heard stories about, God maybe calling people. So I said, I went and checked around the house, see if other people called me. Nobody's calling me. So then I said, man, this is crazy. Let me finish up. I didn't say it one more time. And something in me said, ask the question you want to ask.
I'm laughing, Pastor, because my mind is playing tricks on me.
That's what I'm saying.
So this is going on while you're hearing this voice.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about myself. Like, I know I ain't drank today, so I know I ain't on that. So, but okay. Yeah, my mind's playing tricks on me. And so then my mind, something in me said, you need to ask the question. Ask the question. And so then I said, God, if it's you calling me, light a fire. Let me feel like it's a fire on the inside of me, right? Because I had just come from church, and the preacher was talking about, it's just like fire shut up in my bones. So I was like, well, let's just ask that question. And Henry was like, somebody had literally set me on fire. It was just like I was engulfed in flames. It was hot on the inside. I was burning up. It was just burning. And I could feel it almost like today. I could just feel that warmth on the inside. I didn't believe it. So then I went to school. I went to church, and I talked to one of my elder women. I was like, man, I'm tripping, man. I was learning my rap game, and I'm trying to get my game going. And I just kept hearing these voices, and I prayed. She was just like, well, ask God for a sign. Ask God for a sign. If really God calls me, God will show you what you need to see. So I did. I picked the most ridiculous thing a 15-year-old could pick. I said, all right, if it's you, God want me to do something, put a big blue cross in the sky with white clouds totally surrounded. That's what I want to see in the sky. All right. I'm thinking, hey, that I'm good. That ain't gonna never happen. I'm invisible. Don't nobody know who I am. God don't know me. I've been struggling in this life. I'm just an invisible black kid that's just here. So I go to school. I don't see nothing. I'm cool. And then one day I'm sitting in class, and Spirit say, turn around. Turn around. I turn around, and I see this huge blue spot with a white clouds all around it. I started looking, and I asked my classmates, I'm like, yo, dog, you see that? You see the cross? He's like, man, what you talking about? It's like a frog or something, but I see something. I asked all these people, they didn't see nothing. And then I was looking confused as I'm looking at it. It said, they didn't ask for it. You did. I said, okay. And then it went away. So the next week, I preached my first sermon at my church. God's grace and mercy is sufficient. I was 15 years old, ninth grade.
15.
Ninth grade. About to finish my ninth grade year.
There's so much to unpack with that. There's so much. I know people are listening to this who might not be people of faith, going to find all that hard to believe. People who actually truly have the faith will not find that hard to believe. I know that's hard to believe for some people who are agnostic or whatever. So did you ever ask God, though, in that situation? Because I do want to come back to you saying you were illiterate, you couldn't read, but did you ever ask God, why let this happen to my sister? God, why let my mom be this way? And did he answer?
Yeah, I mean, I always ask that question. And then even after it happened to me, when I was with a babysitter, and, it used to happen to me at the babysitter.
Oh, stop. How, see, bro, you just dropping so much on me. You were saying you as a young boy were molested by a man or a woman. I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Babysitter. Yeah.
How old were you?
8.
Wow. So all this is going on with your sister at around the same age. You're getting molested around the same age, which has to actually mess with how you see sexual contact and intimacy.
Yep.
That has to really mess up all that too. Okay, but that's something else we could get to unpack. Okay, so all this is happening to you. God showing you stuff, and you have a conversation with God and say, "Hey, hold up, player. Like, I got a question before we make this jump. I need to know."
Yeah, I don't think I. Well, one, the gift of the mind, and was that the stuff that happened to me was it was kind of held off, right? It was, my mind kept locking that away from me, so I didn't feel that in my body. But until a lot later on, when I was in Princeton, we could talk about that. But the conversations that I had with God about that was that, these are what people do. God didn't do this, right? These are, evil. It was always coming to me that evil is about what individuals do in their actions, not about what God gives them permission to do. So my job was to keep talking about that evil and then trying to get help from my sister at the same time. And it wasn't until I was of age where I could confront him that we blew up, and was about to go to blows, and Mama intervened at that time because I just wasn't gonna let him do it no more. I'm like, this is it, man. I'm done. And then that's when I went to school and I was crying, and the teacher, she asked me what was going on, and I just kind of laid all what I'm telling you. I laid it all out, and she was the first one to call CPS for us, Child Protective Service for us, after all those years.
What happened with the babysitter? Did she ever get caught, or did you report that to anyone?
No, I never reported. The sad part is that, the way Black boys, especially vulnerable Black boys, are treated is that's an acceptable practice. So I thought that was acceptable. I mean, I already had this kind of disjointed relationship that I've been seeing anyway. So I thought that was normal. And it wasn't until I saw the movie Antoine Fisher that I realized it wasn't normal.
Wow.
It made sense. It made sense that, why I was so angry and why I was always these things, because, my body had felt violated, but my mind kept it away from me so it wouldn't, take control. So the Antoine Fisher narrative, was almost like my story too. So when I saw that movie, it got me rethinking again about, what I had been through. And so then I realized that Because a lot of young boys are probably going through the same thing.
For sure.
But nobody was telling them that that's wrong, that people shouldn't be doing that to your body or touching your body or think that that's funny. So I had a lot of different pieces in my life and that were coming to me at different stages. So when I share this part of myself, it really is about understanding the different connections that of my life that allow for me to negotiate being okay in some spaces and being disrupted in that space in other ways.
I feel like your story is probably more common than what people think. And I'm not talking about, your specifics, but those type of things. So I'm hearing you, but I'm seeing other young Black men who are in high school who feel like they're illiterate. They can't read for whatever reasons, having trauma in their lives, so they're being disruptive. And a school system's not prepared to deal with that all type of anger. No, like, I'm not knocking teachers because teachers have to do a lot.
Yep.
But you have these kids coming in with all this trauma, this anger, being fearful of police, all the systems going on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really no one to stop them and educate them and be there for them. And so it's for you to break that cycle, to do that is almost a miracle, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to you being illiterate. That's hard for me to believe. Someone who's gone through seminary school, who's an attorney. How did you turn that around so quickly? Because then you went to college. Because you went to college. Did you go to Morehouse?
But before I went to Morehouse, I went to Jarvis Christian College.
Okay.
So that was in between. So I had, I didn't think I could do college, and I had a job working at Winn-Dixie, which is a local grocery store in Texas. So I'm working at Winn-Dixie. And I get this call one day. And it's funny when the call came, because the call came right when CPS was splitting up at the house, right? So we were packing up, having to move because we couldn't stay there anymore. And CPS was moving us out. And the call came and the lady was just like, we heard from your counselor that you're a good student. And we want to give you an opportunity to come to college and try it out. And I was like, I can't go to college. I'm like, I can't do it. I got this job at Winn-Dixie. I can make an assistant manager in 6 months. I'm, good worker. And she said something that stuck with me. She's like, why don't you just come out and try it? If you fail, you can always go back to bagging groceries. And I was like, well, that makes sense. So I never applied. I never filled out an application. They just told me to come down and try it out. So nobody in my family had been to college. It wasn't like a first generation, like, no Mitchell had been to college. So we had to, my relatives bought me a trunk, and then we had like a trunk party where everybody put some stuff in there. And then we went down to East Texas, and I got involved, and I was happy and doing all these different things in the school, but I couldn't read. College was different than high school. High school, they would tell you stuff, and then you could just find it, just look for it. In college, nobody's give you anything. They give you a book and tell you go analyze it. And man, Henry, I struggled to no end. And so after I had failed everything, there were 2 Black women that were working there, Margaret Bell and Daisy Wilson. And Miss Bell and Miss Wilson pulled me to the side one day when I was like really like just about to give up. And they said to me, Everett, you a diamond in the rough. And they said, what is it? I said, and that's the first time I told them, I said, I can't understand this. It takes me 3 hours to look at one page. I don't know what it means. I don't understand it. And they said, we're going to teach you how to do this. So they literally, 2 old Black women sat me down and taught me how to study. They taught me words. They taught me phrases. They made me go to the library every day. So while everybody else was kicking it, I was in the library. I was in the library from 5 to 10 every day, 5 p.m. to 10 o'clock with my little boom box. Right, I had my little boom box on my shoulder, and I would go up to the library, and that's what I did every day, 5 to 10. And Miss Wilson would read my papers ahead of time, and so she would help me edit papers, and so I could learn how to edit. And Marbell would help me with the biology and math to make sure everything was done. So I always had the discipline to say, I never waited to the last minute because I always had to do it 2 weeks ahead of time. So Ms. Wilson and Marbell could have an opportunity to follow up and check on it. So yeah, they were the bridge. They were the bridge before I got to Morehouse.
What's interesting? So the woman that you went to in high school reported this to. That was a black woman?
It was a white woman.
White woman.
Yeah, Miss Love, Amy Love.
So, but women have come to your rescue a lot of times.
Oh man, they just in many different ways. My journey has been all these different people who have been there to support me in that process. I still went back and saw Marbell. When I go back to Texas, I always go down, drive 2 hours to East Texas to see her because she's still alive and just tell her thank you, man. And it's crazy because she has dementia, so she doesn't remember me from my present, but she remembers me from the past.
So you're still a little Everett back in the day.
To her, I'm still in her mind. I'm still that little Everett, and and I tell her daughter who takes care of her, like I don't care where she remembers me at, as long as she remembers me. Mm-hmm. And it brings her joy when I call and when I send her pictures and things like that.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's a blessing. Okay, so you go to the Christian. What was the name of the school again?
Jarvis Christian College.
Jarvis. I want to make sure they get a shout out. So you go to college and you graduate from there, and then at that point you decide you want to go to law school. So you didn't go to law school. You went to Morehouse.
I went to Morehouse. Yep. I transferred after 2 years. I went from like a 1.9 to like a 4.0. And then I transferred to Morehouse, and it's like my struggle started all over again when I went to Morehouse. I'm like, Lord Jesus. I'm like, God, what are you doing?
Why though? See, what was the struggle? You seem like you're prepared. You did the 5 to 10 every day in the library. Like, what was Morehouse? It was the curriculum was more rigorous, or it was just a culture? What was it?
Well, Morehouse was a whole bunch of bougie brothers, right? A whole bunch of
you felt right at home then.
A bunch of 2-parent black families that had lived in the legacy of education. Mm-hmm. So when you come into college like that and you haven't had education, you don't have that background. It was, and they used to always tell me, like, if you couldn't afford to be at Morehouse, you shouldn't have came to Morehouse. Ooh. So I literally went. I didn't have a room. All I had was my little bag. Can you hear me?
Yep, I'm here.
All right. And so because of that, I went to school, and it was just hard, man. Never having a place to live, never having enough money. Didn't have financial aid to kind of really support me there. So Morehouse was a consistent struggle. So I always had multiple jobs, working on campus, doing side jobs for people, just trying to make ends meet while I'm still, going through the rigorous nature of the school itself. So
how long were you at? What degree did you get at Morehouse?
I got 2 degrees, one in mathematics and one in religion.
And mathematics and religion, wow, that made me stop. Wow, you don't hear too many black folks doing mathematics. That's what's up.
Yeah, There was a whole bunch of us because we all wanted to be math teachers. Mm. Yeah, we all wanted to be math teachers. So we all was in the Benjamin Elijah Mays Scholars Program for those for Black men who wanted to go into education. And actually, the first book we ever read was Dr. Gloria Billings' book.
Really?
I think it was like Dream Breakers or something like that. And it was her book that was the first book that we were ever gifted as a standard for what education should be in the classroom with our children.
So for many you don't know, Dr. Gloria Elijah Billings is a mentor, icon in our community, a mother of the community. She's from Philly. She's from Philly, but we take her as our own. She was doing stuff at UW-Madison for a while. She's just a blessing, but she's a leader on education. And so I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised, right? Because it's like you're here now and hearing that in Morehouse, y'all are reading about our mother and our sister, Gloria Elijah Billings. That's amazing to hear that, man. That's what a story. Okay. Yeah. So you get through Morehouse struggling like a lot of college students do, hustling a couple jobs.
But Morehouse was different. Morehouse gave me, because right in my last semester Morehouse, I'd done everything I could do at Morehouse. I helped out with student government. I'd done, Bible study classes. I was an RA. I did every hustle I could hustle to try to get me in that spot. And so the last semester that I come, I'd always worked off my debt because I would do many different jobs and I pay off my debt. And so my last semester, I go to the window like we always had to do at the HBCUs. You got to go to the window. So I go to the window and I'm just like, and the lady's like, we changed our policy. So now you got to pay up front. You can't pay it off later. I'm like, but I don't have no money. I never have money. I always pay it off. And the lady was like, I give you a choice. You can either take the money that we have now, put it towards your tuition and you just be homeless, or you could go home, save up some money and then come back. And I'm like, I've been doing this for all these years. I ain't got nowhere to go back to. I don't have that. I got it. This is all I got. She's like, well, it sounds like you got to make a choice. I said, well, you know what? I don't have no home to go back to. So why don't we just go ahead and put all the money toward my tuition and then I just have to be homeless. I just figured out. So I was homeless. So I took all my little boxes and I put it inside.
See, now look. So homeless has degrees. I want to make sure I understand. Like homeless could be, I'm
like
sleeping. I'm sleeping at different people.
Car.
Okay.
We own like couches. We in like dorms and people's dorms, and so this is like this crazy. And I'm like, man, I've been working so hard. Why? So, but this is how God works. So I ain't got no place to sleep. I'm just kind of sleeping in the cars and in different like little rooms and dorms with friends and stuff. And so one of my homeboys that I went to school with at Jarvis came to Atlanta to do his master's, and he had a relationship with a church, Cascade United Methodist Church, and so Cascade, he went to the pastor and told him that I was homeless, and asked the pastor, we got this parsonage, would you mind him staying there? And I still remember Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. Pulled me in and say, you know what? It's available. Go ahead, son. You don't need to be homeless. Go ahead and finish out your last semester. And he let me sleep in the parsonage of the church for free. And I didn't have a bed. I had a pallet on the floor. Real bougie brothers don't know nothing about a pallet on the floor, but I had a pallet on the floor, and that's all I had. And I had that in my little computer that that one of my friends had given me. And that's how I finished out my last semester at Morehouse. So
I hope people are listening to this though, because there is a consistent theme into what you're saying: struggle, redemption, struggle, redemption, perseverance, endurance, and somehow you kept the faith in yourself. Like something in you didn't break, where you didn't give up. A lot of people would have given up all those times. Even when I heard you say about Morehouse was they were basically telling you don't belong here, but you stuck it out like, no, something told you that I am worthy of being here. I wish that's something that we can put in all of our youth, is that their identity and that self-confidence. And I don't know, you have a strong sense of self, and I don't know where that comes from. Maybe that's a God thing, but that's amazing to hear. So, okay. So Morehouse, the pastor, God did his thing with you again. He's spoiling you again, like you one of those spoiled children. Okay, so he's spoiling you again. So okay, so you graduate from Morehouse. Then what happens?
So I'm trying to. I plan to be a teacher, right? So I have this degree, and I'm thinking I'm gonna use it to go teach. And No Child Left Behind comes, and they tell us that in order for us to be teachers, we got to do another year and a half of school because we need to do. I'm like, dude, I didn't spend all the money I have. I can't afford another year and a half of school. That's just not going. And so then the opportunity came where Princeton Seminary came, and they were like, we're looking for qualified, passionate people to think about, seminary training in Princeton, and we're here to support you. And so I was filling out, I thought maybe I could just get a job back home and I doing computers and stuff like that. And that could be a good job. And then one of my mentors, an old white guy, Paul Wheelock, said to me, he said, don't turn down Princeton to fix computers. You just don't do that. He said, you always get money, but you need your education. And so I called Princeton up. I'm like, listen, man, I ain't got no money. I applied, but I don't have no resources. And the guy, Matt, I think his name was Matt Spinoza. He said to me, he said, all right, listen, this is what I'll do. I got one fellowship left that we hadn't filled out. I give you a presidential fellowship, which means it'll cover your housing, books, tuition. All you got to do is keep a 3.5.
Oh, that's all at Princeton.
At Princeton, right? So I'm thinking I'm like, well, at least I can get through the first year before they have to evaluate me. So at least I could be able to do that. So I told him, I said, yes, I'll take that. And so then I just picked up, put all my stuff in my car again. And my mom and one of my aunts, we just started driving to Princeton. And actually with like me, my aunt, and another lady that was at my church, we all three packed into my Plymouth Acclaim and drove all the way to New Jersey from Texas. And and when I got to Princeton, man, it like that cycle you said, that adversity situation, it started all over again. And yet God provided somebody. And this time I learned from an Indian guy named Ajit Prasadam. And he was from India, had a calling on his life, and he was working on his doctorate. And I just happened to fall into his class as he was the assistant to the professor. And he and Dr. Loader was an old white guy, for whatever reason, saw something in me. And Ajit told me, he said, Dr. Loader sees something special in you. Now, this is a big class. This is a first year class for all kinds of people. He said, but Dr. Loader sees something in you, and we want to make sure that you rise to excellence. So Ajit and his wife, Daisy, he would invite me over. Daisy would make me a mango lassi, and then we would sit down, and he said, I'm going to teach you how to elevate your writing so that you can see yourself. And so I'm at Princeton, having to read. Dr. Loader said, submit a paper. It wasn't quality. So Dr. Loader gave me a chance to write it over and over and over and over again. I wrote the same paper over 10 times for Dr. Loader. And then when I submitted the paper at the end of the semester, Dr. Loader gave me my first Princeton A. And what he said on there, he said, I hope you now understand what the grace of God is like.
The people he's saying to you over and over repetition. You didn't get it right the first time, and get you grace to get it the second time. You didn't get it right the third time. I love you enough to give you grace the fourth time, fifth time. You here? Oh, you did it. Okay,
and you did it. This is it.
What's interesting about hearing your story is you said the two women in college. They saw something in you. They said they saw something in you, diamond in the rough. So they actually invested in you. You're saying this gentleman now at Princeton saw something and he said he wanted to have you, like, he saw something in you that he wanted to help you excel. It's amazing that people saw something in you. That's the consistent, like they saw something in you that want to invest in you. And it also shows, ironically, you had this bad relationship with your mom growing up, with her man she was with, the woman who molested you, all those things. But at the flip side, you have all those other beautiful relationships with people invested in you to help you get where you were going to get. So like you saw like the worst and the best in people. It's fascinating to hear that story. Fascinating. And brother, and I give you credit. You remember everyone's name too. Like you remember. Like you drop names, like you remember names. That's like an amazing gift that you have. Okay, so Princeton, did you graduate with a 3.5 or what happened?
Oh yeah, I didn't get less. I actually finished Princeton with one of their highest awards once I graduated. Now, I will say that it was at Princeton that all of the stuff that I had in my life came back again. So, when you start now moving into marriage, and I got, I was young, but I got married to my college girlfriend at the time. And, I did everything right, no sex before marriage, making sure everything. But the moment that we engaged in that is the moment that all of the trauma came back. All of that stuff from the babysitter came back. And I was sitting with one of my professors, and we were just talking about just men stuff, just, ministry and things. And I was just talking about how I felt like the Incredible Hulk. And Henry, when I started asking him, the first question he asked me was like, has anybody ever abused you? And I was just like, no, man, I had some people do this. And I was describing what the babysitter did. I'm like, but they happened to all of us. All my friends went through that. And he said something that when it unlocked everything at the same time. He said, that's abuse. That's abuse. And all of the memories came back. Everything I had never thought about in all those years. I'm sitting there at Princeton, 26 years old. And now my mind is flooded with every smell, every scent, every touch, every frustration, every action. And it became overwhelming. And so that was the first time that I had to go into a mental hospital and started to, drink, take medication, and spend a lot of time in therapy before that commitment. And that was probably one of the most humbling times in my life, because here I am at Princeton, sitting in the mental hospital with crayons, as they tell me, draw what you feel. And I'm in this room with people, and I'm sitting in that room, and I can't control my emotions. I'm all over the place, and everything is it just feels like a well that has just been broken. And this is Black woman, and I'm sitting there again, right? I always felt like, I was like the shack. This is about Black women, God speaking through Black women and different people. I'm sitting there, and then I'm drawing, and she leans over and she looks at me, right? Almost like, in ways that, I had never been looked at before, deep in my soul. And she says to me, it's going to be all right. Oh. And I say, I'm drawing crayons. She said, but it's going to be all right. And, and there's always, when I think about that, that's that moment, right? In the midst of that home and all this other stuff going up, people up, and, they got me in rooms of people, they just up all night and they seeing stuff. And this woman said, it's going to be all right. And then later on, after I got out the hospital and I was in Trenton working, I ran across that lady, and she didn't remember who I was. She was gone and catatonic herself. But I told her, even in her catatonic state, I said to her, thank you for letting God use your body to speak to me. And I appreciate you seeing me when we were in that same space together. And and so that was probably the hardest. So I'm still in school, still trying to work. I gained a whole bunch of weight. That's when I started gaining a bunch of weight as I was drinking, and this medication was doing some crazy stuff to me. And that was probably the time where I didn't understand. And probably all the stuff I should have been asking God when I was younger is what I really started asking God then. Like, why did you let this happen to me? Why do I have to live like this? Why did I have to go through that? And so, and it was around this time that my biological father came back into my life. Ooh. So that's a whole nother branch of the conversation. I know we don't have a whole bunch of time left, but that's a whole nother aspect of my biological father coming back in to my life around that time.
And you're around 28 this time?
No, I'm still about 25, 26.
And you're married at this point?
Yep.
Married in a mental institution with crayons in the middle of Princeton. Yes. And married.
Yes.
At 25, 26 years of age.
Yes. It was.
Bro, so, I love you. I hope I love you. And to hear your story, though, is heartbreaking, inspiring, eye-opening. But as a man of faith, as I am, a man of faith, and everyone knows this about me, you tied God in everything, all your journey. You said God more times than anything else through this whole journey. And to be honest, bro, you've had a broken life. Like, you've had a lot of real stuff that has broken, which people, a lot of black folks go through what he's talking about right now. Y'all hear it more from black women because black women verbalize it better than black men do. Yep. But black men, I promise you, if we had 100 black men in the room right now, half of them would be saying similar stories easily. Easily. But you overcame all this, right? To be a judge, to be a pastor, and your law degree. So when did you get your law degree?
When I moved here, after I finished Princeton, I moved here with my ex-wife. I had actually decided to go to medical school.
Oh, hold up. Stop. Hold up. What? So you were married. So who you married to now is not the woman you're talking about then? This is a different wife. No. Oh, good, man. I missed that. So you were married to the 20s to 25, 26 to whoever this young lady is. I mean, you're no longer married so you guys got divorced between Princeton and UW-Madison?
Between me going to law school, yep. She had her sister was killed right when right when I had gotten accepted to law school here. Her sister was killed by a drunk driver. And she never came back. Right. So by that time I had my daughter, who was 2 years old, Sydney. And so, she was kind of out there sitting out, we were broke now, no money. I was still working in Madison area urban ministry and doing some side jobs. And then Sydney and I found ourselves homeless. Like we couldn't have enough money for a lease and, and that's why my attachment to UW has always been so strong because all I had was that letter from UW and I didn't have no money. And I took it to the housing people at UW and was like, listen, I don't have no money. I don't have, no way to pay you right now. Everything I have is gone, but I got my baby now and I promise you I'll pay you back if you just give me a place. And two women, again, said to me, I said, don't worry about it. We got you. We actually have a 2-bedroom that'll be available that we can get you in. It's really tiny, but it'll get you started. And, I could have just cried right there on them women. And they said, you just got to give us a couple of weeks. We'll start getting it ready for you. And so I said, well, I can find a place for us to go for a couple of weeks together. And that's what I did. I just kind of, couch surfed for a little bit and then sitting out, kind of moved into our place, man, at UW. And
your daughter was 2?
2. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we moved to that little spot. I go back and I take pictures of that little house, little apartment, man. Because that was our first spot together, and now she just turned 16, so that's a reminder. Hey,
that's 16, huh?
Yeah.
She don't remember that. Right? Yeah.
No, she remember none of that.
Now she's talking about, Dad, I need a car. You talking about homeless? She's like, we were never homeless. What are you talking about? Dad, I need a car. Dad, that's what homeless. That I need a car. How about that, Daddy? Yeah, I get it. That's a good place to be. Okay, so we did 2-3 hours for your story. So
I'm sorry, man.
No, I want to ask you this question though. You look back on your life. Mm-hmm. How do you explain it? What is that? If you had to explain to someone, like in a sentence or something, what your life was, what do you explain it? What is it? How do you explain that?
That sometimes certain people are chosen so that they could be able to understand what others feel. And that's where I think I was chosen so I can understand. None of my life made sense until I sat down on the bench for the first time. Even pastor didn't make sense, but all my life made sense when I sat down on that bench and I saw a kid for the first time.
That's so clear to me. When I heard that earlier on what you were saying about you being a boy and not reading and all that stuff, you could clearly connect that to how you were. That could have been you being in that courtroom. Yep. That could have been you coming to the pastor saying I was broken. That could have been you. You understood the journey. You understood the pain. God has done that throughout scripture. I mean, that's biblical. Okay. I asked everyone not one word, but I asked everyone Look, you got me flustered, brother. Your stories just, I hope you write a book one day. But if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I was watching a show called The Titans the other day, and it was my superpower would be healing. It would be healing. That'd be my superpower.
Well, some people say that you are healing. Healing comes in many forms. Thank you so much, Judge Everett Mitchell, Pastor Everett Mitchell. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Real Talk. If you want any more of this content, make sure you go to our YouTube page, go to wherever you get your podcast content, and thank you again for joining us.
This is 365 Media.